Dr. Hannah Kim felt the sharp pain hit her again as she gripped the medical bay's rail. The stars outside the new horizon seemed to blur as another wave crashed through her body. She had planned to give birth on Earth, but her son had other ideas. "The baby is coming now," Dr. Ji-won Park said, her voice calm but urgent. "We cannot wait for the return trip." Hannah looked around the small medical room. This was not how she had imagined bringing her first child into the world. She was supposed to be home, surrounded by family, not floating in space millions of miles from Earth. Her husband Dong-hyun was somewhere on the planet below, collecting rock samples and taking photos of alien plants. He did not even know the baby was coming early. "I can see the head," Dr. Park said. "One more push, Hannah." Hannah closed her eyes and pushed with all her strength. She heard a cry, high and sweet, and felt tears run down her face. Her son was here. He was alive. "He is perfect," Dr. Park said, but her voice sounded strange. "But there is something." Hannah opened her eyes. Dr. Park was holding her baby, but she was staring at his tiny hand with a confused look. "What is wrong?" Hannah asked, fear creeping into her voice. "Nothing is wrong," Dr. Park said quickly. "But look at this." She held up the baby's right hand. His small fingers were curled around something that glowed with soft blue light. It looked like a piece of crystal or metal no bigger than Hannah's thumb. The light pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. "What is that?" Hannah whispered. "I do not know," Dr. Park said. "He was born holding it. I tried to take it away, but it seems to be stuck." To his palm, Hannah reached out to touch her son's hand. The moment her finger brushed the strange object, she felt a shock run through her body. For just a second, she saw flashes of images in her mind. Strange cities with tall spires reaching toward purple skies. Creatures with many eyes and silver skin. Ships that moved between the stars like fish swimming through water. "Did you see that?" she asked Dr. Park. "See what?" Dr. Park looked confused. "I just saw you touch his hand." Hannah stared at her newborn son. She named him Minho, which meant brave and smart in Korean. She hoped he would need both qualities in the days to come. Dr. Park ran every test she could think of. She used the ship's most advanced scanners to look at the object in Minho's hand. The readings made no sense. The object was only 3 centimeters long, but it contained technology that was far beyond anything humans had ever created. "It appears to be some kind of computer," Dr. Park told Hannah later, "but the materials are unknown. The energy it produces is unlike anything in our databases." "Can you remove it?" Hannah asked. "I tried," Dr. Park said, "but it is not just stuck to his skin. It appears to be connected to his nervous system. If I try to cut it away, I might hurt him." That night, Hannah held Minho in her quarters. The object, in his hand, cast a soft blue glow across his sleeping face. She tried to contact Dong-hyun on the planet below, but the communication system was having problems. Every time she tried to send a message, static filled the channel. "The baby is affecting our equipment," Chief Engineer So-min told her the next morning. "We are detecting strange energy patterns coming from your quarters." Hannah looked down at Minho sleeping in her arms. "What kind of energy?" "Gravitational waves," So-min said. "Small ones, but they are there. It is like he is bending space around himself." Over the next few days, strange things began to happen on the ship. Crew members who walked past Hannah's quarters reported having vivid dreams. They dreamed of worlds covered in crystal forests and oceans that glowed with their own light. They saw creatures that looked like living shadows and others that seemed to be made of pure energy. Yong, who worked in the engine room, came to see Hannah on the 3rd day. "I had the strangest dream last night," he said. "I was standing in a city made of white stone. There were beings there, tall and thin, with skin like silver. They were looking at me and nodding as if they knew me." "What did they say?" Hannah asked. "Nothing," Yong said. "But I understood them anyway. They said they were waiting for the child to grow up." Hannah felt a chill run down her spine. She looked at Minho, who was awake and staring at her with bright, intelligent eyes. The object in his hand pulsed gently, and for a moment she could swear she heard voices whispering in languages she had never heard before. Something was happening to her son. Something that would change not just his life, but perhaps the life of every human being. She held him closer and wondered what kind of future awaited them all. The ship continued its journey through space, carrying its precious cargo toward an unknown destiny. In the depths of space, other ships began to change course, drawn by signals they had been waiting centuries to receive. Minho's first birthday came quietly aboard the New Horizon. Hana had made a small cake from the ship's food supplies, and a few crew members gathered in her quarters to celebrate. But as they sang happy birthday, something extraordinary happened. The blue crystal in Minho's palm began to glow brighter than ever before. Suddenly, points of light appeared in the air above his crib, floating like tiny stars. The lights grew and spread, forming a three-dimensional map that filled half the room. "What is that?" gasped So-Young Lee, the ship's navigation officer. She stared at the glowing display with wide eyes. The map showed star systems and planets, connected by thin lines of light. Some systems pulsed with different colors: red, green, gold, and silver. Strange symbols floated next to each star, writing that looked nothing like any human language. "I have never seen these star patterns before," So-Young whispered. "These are not in any of our charts." Hana reached out carefully and touched one of the floating symbols. The moment her finger made contact, her mind exploded with images. She saw a world covered in purple oceans where creatures with tentacles built, cities on floating islands. She heard voices speaking in musical tones, and somehow she understood their words. "The child awakens," the voices said. "The time of joining draws near." Hana jerked her hand back, breathing hard. "Did anyone else hear that?" The others shook their heads. They had seen her touch the map, but they heard nothing. Over the following weeks, the star map appeared every day. Minho would lie in his crib, babbling like any normal baby, while impossible displays of light danced above him. The ship's computer tried to record the images, but they never showed up on any scanner or camera. Only human eyes could see them. "Doctor." Park studied the phenomenon carefully. 17 different star systems, she told Hana. Each one marked with symbols that suggest intelligent life. But how can a baby know about places we have never discovered? 3 months after Minho's birthday, the ship's alarms began ringing. Captain Junho rushed to the bridge where So-Young was staring at her instruments in shock. "Captain," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "we have visitors." On the main screen, massive ships appeared from nowhere. They were unlike anything humans had ever built. Some looked like living creatures with smooth, organic curves. Others were geometric, made of crystal and metal that sparkled in the starlight. There were dozens of them surrounding the New Horizon in a loose circle. "Are they hostile?" Captain Junho asked. "I do not think so," So-Young replied. "They are just waiting." A communication signal came through on frequencies the ship had never used before. The message was complex, layered with mathematics and music, but the computer managed to translate part of it. "Greetings, carriers of the Harbinger. We come in peace to witness the awakening." Hana felt her heart race. She looked down at Minho, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. The crystal in his palm pulsed gently, in rhythm with the signals from the alien ships. A shuttle detached itself from the largest vessel and approached the New Horizon. Captain Junho made the difficult decision to allow it to dock. If they wanted to destroy us, he reasoned, they could have done it already. The airlock opened, and 3 beings stepped aboard. Hana gasped when she saw them. The leader was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Its eyes were large and dark, filled with ancient wisdom. Behind it came 2 other creatures, one that looked like it was made of living crystal, and another that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. "I am Ambassador Kethmore of the Hegemony of Distant Suns," the silver being said. Its voice came through a small device that translated its words into perfect Korean. "We have traveled very far to meet the one you call Minho." "How do you know his name?" Hana asked, holding her son protectively. "We have been watching and waiting," Kethmore replied. "Our ancient texts speak of the Harbinger, a child born among the stars who would carry the Nexus Stone. This child would serve as a bridge between our peoples and yours." The ambassador gestured toward Minho with one long, graceful finger. "The device in his hand is not from your world. It is a gift from those who came before, containing the knowledge of 43 civilizations. We are all part of the hegemony, an alliance that has existed for over 2,000 years. But why Minho? Hana asked. Why my son? The Nexus Stone chooses its carrier, Kethmore explained. It appears only when a species is ready to join the greater community of worlds. Your people have reached the stars. Now you must learn to live among them. The crystal being stepped forward and made a sound like wind chimes. The translator converted its words. The child will grow to be a teacher and guide. Through him, your species will learn our ways and we will learn yours. Hana looked around at the faces of her crewmates. Some looked frightened, others excited. All of them understood that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. What happens now? Captain Junho asked. Now, said Kethmore, we begin the greatest adventure your species has ever known. The child will learn, and through him, so will you all. Hana sat in the quiet medical bay, watching 2-year-old Minho play with colored blocks on the floor. The blue crystal in his palm flickered as he stacked the toys, and each time it pulsed, she felt a strange tingling in her mind. Try touching the stone again, Dr. Park suggested gently, but this time stay calm and let the connection happen slowly. Hana had been afraid to make direct contact with the Nexus Stone since the alien ships arrived. The brief flashes of alien thoughts had been overwhelming, but Ambassador Kethmore had assured her that the stone would not harm her if she approached it with patience. She knelt beside Minho and placed her hand over his tiny palm. The moment her skin touched the crystal, her world exploded into light and knowledge. Images flooded her mind faster than she could process them. She saw the history of civilizations that had risen and fallen among the stars. She witnessed the birth of technologies that could reshape matter itself. She experienced the thoughts and emotions of beings so different from humans that she had no words to describe them. But most importantly, she understood the purpose of the Nexus Stone. It was a library containing the collected wisdom of thousands of species. Everything needed to help a young civilization take its first steps into the galactic community was stored within its crystalline structure. I can see it all, Hana whispered, tears streaming down her face. The knowledge of entire worlds, languages spoken by creatures we cannot imagine, the secrets of faster-than-light travel, the history of wars and peace treaties that shaped the galaxy. Dr. Park monitored Hana's vital signs as she maintained contact with the stone. What else do you see? Diplomatic protocols, Hana continued. The proper way to approach different species. Which ones communicate through color changes, which ones through musical tones. The rules for joining something called the Galactic Concord. She saw vast space stations where representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to make decisions that affected entire star systems. She witnessed trade agreements that moved resources across impossible distances. She observed the delicate balance that kept peace between species that had once been enemies. But then she saw something that made her blood run cold. The stone is changing, Minho, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Park had been running medical scans on the boy every day since his birth. I know, she said sadly. His cellular structure is different now. The regeneration rate is unlike anything I have ever seen. Hana lifted her hand from the stone and stared at her son. He looked up at her with bright, intelligent eyes that seemed far too old for a 2-year-old. What does it mean? It means he will live much longer than any normal human, Dr. Park explained. The stone is preparing him for his role as humanity's ambassador to the galaxy. He will need centuries to learn everything required for that position. The weight of those words hit Hana like a physical blow. Her son would outlive her by hundreds, maybe thousands of years. She would grow old and die while he remained young, carrying the burden of representing humanity to the stars. Ambassador Kethmore entered the medical bay, moving with the graceful steps of his kind. How you have accessed the stone's knowledge, he observed. I can see the understanding in your eyes. Why does it have to be him? Hana asked, fighting back tears. Why does my son have to sacrifice his humanity for this? He is not sacrificing his humanity, Kethmore replied gently. He is becoming something more, a bridge between what humanity is and what it can become. The ambassador gestured to a chair, and Hana sat down heavily. Minho continued playing with his blocks, apparently unaware of the conversation about his future. Throughout galactic history, Kethmore continued, 17 species have produced harbingers like your son. Each one guided their people from isolation to membership in the greater community of worlds. The Zephyrians had Talak the Eternal. The Crystalline Collective had resonance of ancient wisdom. The Void Swimmers had one who speaks between darkness. What happened to them? Hana asked. They served their purpose, Kethmore said. They became legends among their people. They are remembered as the ones who opened the door to the stars. But they lost their families, their normal lives. Yes, Kethmore admitted. That is the price of greatness, but consider the alternative. Without the Harbingers, those species would have remained alone in the darkness, never knowing the wonders that exist beyond their home worlds. Hana looked at her son again. He had built a tower of blocks that was impossibly tall and complex for a child his age. The crystal in his palm pulsed gently, and she realized it was helping him understand principles of engineering and physics that human children did not learn until university. Can the stone be removed? She asked. Dr. Park shook her head. It is too deeply integrated into his nervous system. Removing it would likely kill him. And if we left it alone, humanity would remain cut off from the galactic community, Kethmore said. You would be alone among the stars, forced to discover everything the hard way. Many species have destroyed themselves trying to advance too quickly without guidance. Hana felt the weight of an impossible choice. Save her son's normal life and doom humanity to isolation, or allow him to become something beyond human to serve as a bridge to the stars. She reached out and touched Minho's cheek. He smiled at her, and in that moment she saw both the child he was and the cosmic figure he would become. The alarm screamed through the new horizon as Hana held 3-year-old Minho close to her chest. Through the porthole, she could see military ships approaching fast. They were human ships, but they were not here to help. They call themselves Terra Purist, Captain Junho said grimly as he burst into her quarters. They believe aliens are a threat to humanity. They want to take Minho and study the stone. Hana felt her blood turn cold. She had heard whispers about this group on the communication channels. They thought humanity should remain pure and isolated from alien influence. To them, her son was not a bridge to the stars, but a contamination that needed to be removed. They have 12 warships, So-young reported from the bridge. We cannot fight them alone. Minho looked up at his mother with eyes that seemed far too wise for a child. The blue crystal in his palm pulsed brightly, and suddenly Hana felt knowledge flowing into her mind. She saw the location of every Terra Purist ship, their weapons, their weaknesses. More importantly, she saw how to contact the hegemony fleet that was waiting just beyond the solar system. I know what to do, she said, surprising herself with the confidence in her voice. Using the communication array, Hana sent a complex signal into space. The message contained mathematical patterns and energy frequencies that she had never learned but somehow understood. Within minutes, Ambassador Kethmore's voice came through the speakers. We hear your call, Hana Kim. The Terra Purist faction has been expected. They represent the fear that all species feel when first encountering the wider universe. Can you help us? Hana asked. We can guide you, but humanity must defend itself. This is your first test as a galactic species. The knowledge from the Nexus Stone flowed through Hana like water. She found herself understanding technology that was centuries ahead of human science. She knew how to build energy shields that could protect entire planets. She understood the principles behind weapons that could disable ships without harming their crews. Captain, she said to Junho, I need to speak to Earth Command. Immediately. The next few hours were chaotic. Hana found herself explaining impossible technologies to scientists and engineers on Earth. The knowledge came through her so clearly that she could draw blueprints for devices she had never seen before. The Nexus Stone was using her as a conduit, sharing the secrets needed to defend humanity. Working with teams on Earth and the lunar colonies, they began building orbital defense platforms using hegemony designs. The construction went faster than anyone thought possible. It was as if the universe itself was helping them. Meanwhile, the Terra Purist fleet had grown larger. Ships arrived from Mars colonies and asteroid mining stations. Their leader, Admiral Chen Wei, sent threatening messages demanding that the IE New Horizons surrender the alien contamination. "That contamination is my son," Hana said angrily during one of their communications. "Your son is no longer human," Admiral Chen replied coldly. "He is a weapon that aliens have planted among us. We will remove the device and study it properly." The first battle came when Terra Purist forces tried to board the New Horizon, but the ship was no longer defenseless. Using technology from the Nexus Stone, the crew had modified their systems. Energy barriers protected the hull, and stunning weapons disabled the attacking soldiers without killing them. The conflict spread across the solar system. Terra Purist ships attacked the new orbital platforms around Earth, only to find that the defenses were far stronger than they expected. The platforms used gravity waves to push attacking ships away, and energy pulses to disable their weapons. The war lasted 8 months. Historians would later call it the Ascension War, humanity's first step toward becoming a true galactic civilization. During the conflict, Lieutenant Commander Donghyun finally returned from his planetary survey mission. Hana watched from the observation deck as his shuttle docked with the New Horizon. She had not seen her husband in over a year, and so much had changed. Donghyun stepped through the airlock and stopped in shock. His son, now 5 years old, was floating in the corridor. Not flying or jumping, but actually floating, surrounded by a soft blue glow. "Hello, Father," Minho said, his voice carrying strange harmonics that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "I have been waiting for you." Hana saw her husband's face go pale. The child before him looked like Minho, but his eyes now held flecks of the same blue energy that pulsed in the crystal. When he spoke, you could hear the wisdom of ancient civilizations. In his words, "What has happened to him?" Donghyun whispered. "He is becoming what he was meant to be," Hana replied sadly. Over the following weeks, Donghyun watched in amazement as his 5-year-old son negotiated peace treaties with world leaders. Minho would sit at conference tables, speaking with the authority of someone who had witnessed the rise and fall of entire civilizations. The boy could now communicate directly with the alien ambassadors without translation devices. His thoughts reached across space to touch the minds of beings light years away. When Terra Purist leaders finally agreed to meet for peace talks, they found themselves facing a child who understood their fears better than they understood them themselves. "You are afraid of losing what makes you human," Minho told them in a voice that carried both childlike innocence and cosmic wisdom. "But becoming part of something larger does not mean losing who you are. It means becoming who you were always meant to be." The war ended not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. Humanity had passed its first test as a galactic species. Hana Kim walked slowly through the corridors of the Galactic Concord Assembly Station, her cane tapping against the smooth metal floor. At 73 years old, she moved carefully, but her eyes were still bright with intelligence. Through the massive viewing windows, she could see ships from dozens of worlds docked at the station, their crews preparing for the most important ceremony in galactic history. Today marked the 25th anniversary of humanity's entry into the Galactic Concord. It was also the day when the Centennial Peace Accord would be signed, ensuring cooperation between all member species for the next 100 years. Hana took her seat in the observation gallery, reserved for family members of the diplomats. Below her, the great assembly hall buzzed with activity. Representatives from over 200 worlds filled the chamber, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that still amazed her after all these years. At the center of it all stood her son. Ambassador Minho Kim looked exactly as he had 15 years ago. His face was still young, his hair still black, his movement still graceful and sure. Only his eyes had changed, becoming deeper and more knowing with each passing year. As he spoke to a group of crystalline beings from the Andromeda sector, faint blue patterns flickered across his skin like living tattoos. "Hard to believe he is 30 years old," said Dr. Park, settling into the seat beside Hana. Her old friend had retired from medicine years ago, but still attended important ceremonies. "Sometimes I forget," Hana admitted. "When I see him like this, speaking with the authority of someone who has lived for centuries, it is hard to remember the baby who used to cry when he was hungry." On the assembly floor, Minho raised his hand and the entire chamber fell silent. When he spoke, his words were automatically translated into hundreds of languages and transmitted directly into the minds of species that communicated through thought, alone. "Friends and colleagues," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space, "today we gather not just to celebrate the past, but to build the future. 25 years ago, humanity took its first steps into the galactic community. We were afraid, suspicious, and unprepared for the wonders that awaited us." Hana smiled as she remembered those early days, the fear in people's eyes when the first alien ships appeared, the protests and riots when governments announced that Earth would join the galactic concord, the slow, careful process of building trust between species that had never imagined each other's existence. "But with patience and understanding," Minho continued, "we learned to see past our differences. Humans now study on Zephyrian crystal worlds. Void swimmers teach our children about the mysteries of dark matter. Our doctors work alongside healers from 47 different worlds to cure diseases that once seemed impossible to treat." It was true. Humanity had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had predicted. Human colonies now existed on worlds with purple skies and silver oceans. Human scientists worked in laboratories that floated in the hearts of gas giants. Human artists collaborated with beings made of living music to create works of beauty that no single species could have imagined alone. As the ceremony continued, Hana watched her son facilitate discussions between species that had been enemies for thousands of years. His role as humanity's ambassador had evolved into something much greater. He had become a mediator for the entire galaxy, helping to resolve conflicts that threatened to tear apart the delicate peace between worlds. The Nexus Stone had given him more than knowledge. It had given him the ability to understand the deepest fears and hopes of any intelligent being. When the warlike Talon Empire had threatened to attack the peaceful Garden Worlds, Minho had spent 3 months living among them, learning their culture, understanding their anger. By the time he left, the Talons had become some of the most dedicated peacekeepers in the galaxy. After the formal ceremonies ended and the delegates began to disperse, Minho made his way to the observation gallery. He moved through the crowd, easily, stopping to exchange greetings with various ambassadors, but his eyes never left his mother. "Hello, Mother," he said, settling into the chair beside her. His voice was warm, carrying none of the formal tones he used in the assembly. "Hello, my son," Hana replied, reaching out to touch his hand. "You spoke beautifully today." "I had a good teacher," he said, smiling at her. "Someone who taught me that the most important thing in any relationship is understanding and patience." As they sat together, Minho closed his eyes and placed his hand over hers. Suddenly, Hana felt a familiar tingling sensation as her mind connected with the Nexus Stone. But this time, instead of alien knowledge flooding her thoughts, she experienced something entirely different. She saw memories of Minho as a baby, laughing as she played peekaboo with him. She felt the joy of his first steps, the pride of his first words. She experienced all the small, precious moments of his childhood that had been lost as he grew into his cosmic role. "I saved them," Minho said softly. "Every memory of being your son, before the weight of the galaxy settled on my shoulders. They are the most precious things the stone contains." Tears ran down Hana's cheeks as she experienced the pure love of a mother and child, untainted by prophecies or destinies. "You gave birth to a human child," Minho told her, his voice thick with emotion. "But you raised the architect of humanity's cosmic future. The greatest gift was not the stone I was born with. It was having you as my mother, while I learned to carry the weight of worlds."